One of my favorite players from this year's draft was Quinyon Mitchell from Toledo. He was selected by the Eagles in the back half of the first round. I really liked his tape coming out of college. They played a lot of quarters at Toledo. He was into the boundary a lot of time, meaning that he had to play man-to-man coverage a lot of the time for the Rockets. We're going to break down a rep he had against the Packers' Christian Watson. We're going to analyze the receiver's release and how that changes your technique as you go through the rep. The first thing that we're going to notice here is that the receiver is going to be inside the numbers. So we have a reduction. You can see the defensive end right here. So we know the receiver is reduced. That's going to put our corner on the outside shoulder of the receiver. What I really like about this is that he doesn't necessarily get the overcoach, right? Where we tell kids all the time, hey, if we're going to be in man coverage or we're going to be in some sort of match coverage, we want to be on that, that outside eye or inside eye here because of leverage. He's reduced, so we want to be on the outside eye of that. But when you get these reductions, they're especially when they're really close, and let's say this is going to be a zone and you have an overhang on the inside that's going to be working out, you can kind of use that to your advantage. I also like that he stays attached to the numbers. So even though that we have this reduction by the receiver, he stays attached to the numbers and he gives himself enough width away from the receiver that if the receiver is going to try and kind of speed release outside, he's not going to get beat. So what we're actually going to see is we're going to see the receiver try and get a speed release, and that's going to change the technique of Mitchell. He's also in an advantageous position. He doesn't feel like he has to stay with this. And that's one of the other things when you're coaching DBs is just because you start on the outside eye doesn't mean that that's where you should be ending up. The release of the receiver should dictate what your coverage is going to be. So on a fast kind of a 45-degree angle that we're going to get from this receiver, he actually should change leverage. He should actually work back inside. There's a reason why that receiver is going outside. So I'm going to show you this right here. As we get going on this rep, this is really nice. Watch his footwork. We're going to get a little kick step, and then he's going to backpedal. Notice how he keeps his shoulder square. Notice the receiver's departure angle. This receiver's departure angle is at a 45. He's attacking the outside hip. Here's the other thing about this is that you're going to lose leverage as a DB at some point, especially if the receiver wants to get outside. So if the receiver wants to get outside of you, you're going to lose your leverage at some point, or you're going to get kind of caught outside and they're going to be able to really work back inside, maybe on an inside nine or something like that, that's not what we want. So if he's going to work outside, notice how Mitchell keeps his eyes down. He transitions to the inside shoulder. The moment that he gets to the inside shoulder, you can see that he actually flips his hip. He's going to invite Watson to go ahead. Hey, show me where you're going to go. We're going outside right here. Now, the moment that he gets into this position, you can see that his eyes are down and he's going to attack the near shoulder of Watson. I really like this. So instead of turning this into a track meet, which is a lot of times this is what happens, you can see that the receiver is now getting on the fade line. That's that, imaginary red line. Some offenses will actually paint it on their field. He's going to get vertical here. Once he gets vertical and his eyes go back, watch how Mitchell's then going to attack that shoulder. He's going to put his hand on the chest plate. So he has every right to his position. He's going to actually use this as a leverage spot, and he's going to open up Watson. Look at how Watson is looking back. He's going to open his shoulders up. Now, this is where a mistake is made by a lot of DBs. Instead of pressing the receiver through the sideline, they want to go ahead and create a track meet, giving him enough space to then either extend his hand or to be able to catch the ball on a back shoulder. What Mitchell does is he's actually going to run through. Notice how he gets his elbow, and this is what I call the hook. He actually hooks his elbow into the armpit. What that doesn't allow Watson to do is to get this other arm through. Watson would actually have to swim over top, and by that time that happens, he's going to already be pressed to the sideline because he's going to lose a lot of his strength. So you can see not only does Mitchell get into the hook, he's going to lean, run through, and he's going to look back. This is where you then want to get chest to chest, and you run through, and then the moment that he sees that hand out, he sees the ball, he's going to swipe up and out. Now, he ends up missing the ball because the ball is actually placed inside, but he has every right to his spot. That receiver has to run around him instead of running through him or to be able to come back because he owns his spot. Notice how he's got all of his leverage into the receiver. He's running the receiver through the sideline. That receiver has to run around him. There's no way that the receiver can try and jump and come back because the receiver has lost all of his power. So he's going to actually run through this, swipe up and out, and then it ends up being an incompletion. So let's go back to the very beginning. Let's watch this. He's going to see that 45-degree angle. Anytime that we get a 45-degree angle release to our leverage point, we actually want to flip our leverage. Releases by receivers are critical for DBs to understand in order to get the information they need for what the route is coming. So right now, I know this is a 45-degree angle. This is a speed release outside from a reduction. I know this route is going outside. I just need to identify if this is going to be an out route or if he's going to turn it into a fade. So you can see here, we're at 5 yards. He's not rounding it out. If he were to round it out, his shoulders and his hips are pointed to the sideline. He would be able to plant and drive on top of this out route. You can see that we don't get any slowdown, any reduction in speed by Watson. Watson's their speed guy anyway. We know that he's going to get vertical. Once he gets in this straight line, once he gets in that straight line, this is when Mitchell understands I'm getting a fade route. I'm going to press this shoulder. I love the hitting the pec, pushing that shoulder open. And then the moment that you push this open, I'm going to run through his low hip. I'm going to get that hook. So he has to make a one-handed catch. And then once I see that the ball is there, I am going to swipe up and out. And notice if this ball was actually placed in the correct spot, that this would have actually hit his hand and it would have been probably a pass breakup. And then he runs him through. This is a great rep by Mitchell on this reduction that leads to us to a fade route in the high red. This is great play and why I really like Mitchell for the Eagles.